Imagine, a writer. The darkest fiction he ever put on paper turns out to be his own death. October 3rd, 1849, Baltimore. The air carries the weight of an approaching storm. On the edge of a damp, filthy alley, a man is found collapsed in the dirt, half conscious, his eyes bulging, as if fighting demons no one else can see. He's wearing clothes that are not his own, cheap, oversized, torn. No one recognizes him. And yet, the miserable man lying on that cold pavement is America's most famous writer. For 4 days, 4 full days, he drifts in a hospital room between hellish agony and madness. Doctors cannot determine what is wrong with him. Just before his final breath, the words that fall from his lips are neither poetry nor farewell. My God, help my poor soul. Edgar Allan Poe died like a character he himself created. But how did this brilliant mind end up on that stone pavement? Let us go backward and rewrite this cursed script, not with ink, but with blood. Edgar's story does not begin in a cradle, but in the shadow of a graveyard. At barely 3 years old, life taught him its cruelest lesson. Everything you love will abandon you. His father vanished like a ghost. His mother, Eliza, was fighting the merciless disease of the era, tuberculosis, at an age when he should have been playing. Little Edgar watched his mother's coughing fits. In the evenings, while she performed on stage, he waited backstage. He watched her play Ophelia, watched her perform the madness scene. She would die on stage, then stand up and bow. Edgar understood the game. Death is temporary, art is permanent. But one night, while playing Cordelia, she truly began to cough. The curtains did not close. There was no applause, that bright red blood staining the white handkerchief. This time, she did not stand back up. There, in that dark backstage corridor, Edgar learned. Outside the stage, death is not a performance, and the people you love do not return for a final bow. That handkerchief never dried in Poe's mind. The color of blood may have faded, but its meaning never did. Because for Poe, death was not an ending. It was a first encounter. Orphaned Edgar was taken in by a wealthy merchant, John Allan. Fate's cruel irony. A poet's soul placed under the care of a man who worshipped money. From the outside, the house looked like a palace. For Edgar, it was a cold prison, furnished with luxury. John Allan saw Edgar's dream of becoming a writer as a disease. He belittled him constantly, made him feel inadequate. The more Edgar begged for affection, the colder the silence he received. To break a child's spirit, violence is not necessary. Making him feel he doesn't belong is enough. In that house, Edgar learned one thing. I am excess. John Allan taught him humiliation. But without realizing it, he taught him something else as well. Hatred. If you plant seeds of hatred in an orphaned child's heart, when that child grows up, he will either harm himself or become a cruel genius. Poe chose both. A rotting soul either stays silent or screams. Poe chose to scream. He sought freedom at university, but his foster father sent him there unarmed. There was not a penny in his pocket. When winter came, there was no firewood left in his room. To stay warm, he broke his furniture and burned it. Hunger is not only felt in the stomach. For Edgar, the most terrifying hunger was dishonor. He had wealthy friends. Edgar could not approach those tables, because to sit at the table, you must first place money on it. The first night he gambled, He won, and he tasted that strange, intoxicating feeling of power. I exist. I am here. But the next night, he lost. The next day, he lost more. "Does fate love me?" asks the gambler. Fate answered Edgar clearly. No. His debts became unbearable. He fled, sought refuge in the army. But can a poet become a soldier? His soul rebelled. He deliberately got himself expelled. Now, he was truly alone in the world. Escape had become his reflex. He fled from his father. He fled from home. He fled from debt. But a man cannot escape from himself. Hunger either kills a writer or turns him into a legend. Edgar chose survival. He began using his pen like a scalpel. During his years as a magazine editor, they called him the Tomahawk Man. His criticism was so sharp, so merciless, that he could execute a bad writer with a single paragraph. People hated him, but they could not stop reading him. And at night, those Gothic masterpieces poured onto the page. The Pit and the Pendulum, the Black Cat. Look carefully. Poe did not fear monsters. In his stories, the real horror is not outside, it is inside. Poe was not telling horror stories to the reader. He was describing the claustrophobia inside his own mind. His pen was merciless because he showed himself no mercy. While cutting others, he was bleeding himself. To see Poe only as a horror writer is the greatest injustice done to him. To silence the unbearable chaos in his mind, he developed a method. Analytical intelligence. Life was like a runaway train. Poverty, alcohol, depression. Against this chaos, Poe wanted to establish absolute order on paper. And thus, he invented the detective. The Murders in the Rue Morgue is not just a story. It is Poe's war against madness. If even the most savage murder can be solved through logic, perhaps Poe could solve his own life. This was not a detective character. This was a scarecrow Poe held on to keep from going mad. But logic only establishes order. It does not cure pain. And inside Poe, there was a place logic could not reach, his heart. And in that dark ocean, there was one lighthouse, Virginia. When 27-year-old Poe married 13-year-old Virginia, his cousin, the world judged him. But behind closed doors, there was another world. Virginia was not a wife to Poe. She was his lost mother, his childhood, the only moment he was innocent. When Virginia played her harp and sang, the crowded ghosts in Poe's head fell silent. The master of darkness became a docile child at his wife's feet. Virginia was not an angel to him. She was something more precious, a harbor. But harbors do not stop storms, they only delay them. January 1845. Poe wrote that famous black bird perched at his window, the raven. The poem exploded. Everyone had memorized it. Poe became a legend overnight. America's most famous poet. His earnings? $9. There was fame, but no warmth. There was applause, but no coal. And Virginia's cough had begun. Poe had written nevermore. He did not know that this word was not a prophecy, but a curse. The disease that took his mother had now wrapped itself around Virginia's throat. One evening, while Virginia was singing, she stopped, covered her mouth. Blood seeped between her fingers. Time shattered in that moment. The house was freezing. They had no money for coal. Poe covered his wife with his military coat. It was not enough. Then he took their cat, Katerina, and placed her on Virginia's chest to keep her warm. Think about that. One of the greatest writers in history, reduced to relying on a cat's body heat to keep his wife from freezing to death. Logic went silent here. Fame went silent here. Only despair remained. January 30th, 1847. Virginia died. The last light inside Poe went out. After Virginia died, Poe did not mourn. He shattered. His last 2 years were not a slow suicide. They were a frantic escape. He attempted suicide with laudanum, but survived. He could not even manage to die properly. So terrified of being alone, he proposed marriage to nearly every woman he encountered. With a wild, desperate look in his eyes, he begged them, silently screaming, "Save me." The genius poet was gone. In his place was a madman talking to his own characters in the streets. The beating heart from the telltale heart was now inside his own chest, ready to explode. October 7th, 1849. Edgar Allan Poe died. 7 people attended his funeral. The ceremony lasted 3 minutes. They didn't even spell his name correctly on the gravestone. But the world did not forget him. And then, there's that mysterious visitor. Every year, on Poe's birthday, a mysterious visitor comes to his grave. He leaves a bottle of cognac and 3 red roses. No one knows who he is. Perhaps a fan, perhaps a ghost, or perhaps a character Poe himself created. Because for some, death is only the beginning. Edgar Allan Poe died, but the raven still flies. "Nevermore," said the bird. But it was wrong, because Poe remained forever.